All right, Mom, I'm glad to have you here. It's the 14th of December, 2020. I'm excited you got a story for us, and I have a couple photos to show you. Maybe we could talk a little bit about some of those past events. So let's hear your story. What's the title?
Okay. I was talking to Jill the other day and reminded her about the sprinklers we used to run through at the school. And she says, "Oh, I'd forgotten that." So I thought I would tell that one today. When we were when we were at home, I would pack lunches for us, and I don't think any of us like peanut butter, so we just used jam sandwich, a banana, if we had a banana, and then some cookies. And we would go up to the school park, which was the football field and baseball field. And so they had these huge sprinklers, and there'd be about 6 of them covering the whole lawn. And so we would put our shoes down in our sack lunches on the grandstand there and start running through the water. We just would go in our plain clothes and just run and run. Had fun all day, for say like 2 hours. And nobody else ever found that out. It was just us there, nobody else. And so after we were done, we'd get a little black towel out and we'd lay out there and just dry off because it'd be a hot summer day. Well, when we got finished with that, we would go along the road as we're going back to the grocery store there, Jack's store, and we would look for bottles. And in those days, you got a nickel for every bottle you returned. So we'd get an armful of bottles, go in there, and we maybe get a quarter each, and then we'd buy us a nice big candy bar and walk home and happy as can be. And Mother was happy that we'd been out of her hair for a while. So that was a good story about how we enjoyed the summertime.
That's great. So this was from the house in Malad with Henry Bolingbroke House and Grandma Nettie. And you would walk to the end of the street, and then the next street up was the high school and the big football field or whatever it is, the grass field there.
Yep.
And I remember that's where they would have the 4th of July events. When we were kids, we'd go up there.
All the events more or less were on through like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was because it was kind of nice. They had a park and then the school, and then across the street was the LDS chapel. So it was like they were able to easily do activities and events there, I guess, right?
Yeah. We were strategically in the right spot for the store and for all these different things. One more thing I have to laugh about with Jill. Every morning she wanted a bologna sandwich for putting in her lunch. And she would run up to Jack's, go over to Elmer the butcher and say, "Cut me off a piece of bologna." Just one piece. She never thought about getting 5 or 6. She'd get one piece. I don't know, maybe it was 3 cents or something. And she'd run home again, make up her sandwich. And the next morning it'd be the same thing. She'd run up there and say, "Elmer, give me some bologna." And he'd slice off his thing. And I'm sure they were laughing at her.
She wanted fresh cut bologna.
Yes, every time. Yep, didn't cost her too much.
Now, thinking of that neighborhood around the house, now, did you grow up your whole life at that same house in town, or did you ever live anywhere else?
No, well, I don't know if I should tell a story of how we got the house, but my dad, Mom, and Keith were renting all the time. And my dad gambled, and I guess they were down the fire station and doing some gambling, and I guess he thought he had a real good hand. And there was another guy, and he says, "Well, I've got a good hand too." So he says, I have a house over there by that church. It's a really good place. Well, Dad won the house, but Mother was not happy about it because it was a little two bedroom, well, it was one bedroom and one kitchen, and it was all orange brick. And so right after World War II, I was born in 1946. So about that time, my Uncle Boyd and a friend started building our house on, building the basement, and he put a big, large kitchen in our front room in it. And we just loved that house. And you had a partition or a wall between the kitchen and the dining room. And Mother, one day when my ex was there, she was saying, I wish we could open that place between the kitchen and the dining room or the front room here, make it so much bigger. And he said, well, that can easily be done. And he started it and he finished it, and she was just amazed at what could be done. So we had a pretty nice house. We had a basement where Kelly lived, and we got around in that house pretty good. And
so when I think of that house, you talk about you had to build onto it. Originally, there was the basement, right?
No
basement. It was just, you said, a bedroom and a front room with the kitchen, and then they had to add on.
It was just a kitchen, which we turned into a bedroom for. Well, I guess it had to cook in there too, because it was just two rooms: mother and father's bedroom, and then the one room that was the kitchen, and I guess where we set our places up. And I'm not sure about when my grandma and grandpa Thomas moved across the street, but she was always there to help when the babies were born, because Mom had a hard time holding the kids. And she'd be over there and she'd make us pancakes, and she had pies, and my dad loved gooseberry pie. So we had a pretty good place, and you know, a funny little thing of being a house that you got through a bit, and then it became such a beautiful place, and right there by everything, the store, the school was the elementary, the junior high, and the high school right there. We had everything, and luckily none of us could drive but my grandpa. So
now, I remember next door to the left and to the right was an old cabin. I mean, was that like 100 years old or something like that? Or old?
Yes, it was. It was a Williams's, Doug Williams's grandfather's place. And he lived there when I was there, and we'd watch him shave with a straight blade and shave himself and get things ready. And so when he passed away, they put that downtown in the park in their pioneer type park.
So they picked up the cabin and moved it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then the other side, well, there was one on the north and to the south, right?
Yeah, the one on the let's see, which is north, which is south side, which was Mabel Jones's place. And she was a very nice lady, and she had roses, yellow roses, between our places, and she loved to talk with me, and we did things. And when she passed away, the house was just there, bare, nobody doing anything. And so we used her back lawn, which was a great big lawn, and we'd play baseball and kickball, and it was our place that all the kids would come over and do things with. And so that was a fun time. And then when Dad got older, and that's where he put his, he had the spot with the garage awning on it for his car, but he put his mobile trailer back right there on her property. And I don't know, maybe my dad and Tom bought the property, Tom Perry, but they've always had that there, and I don't know what's become of it now.
Because I can remember as young kids, Ed and Chuck and I, probably Andy, we'd go there and we'd be able to play. There's no fences around in the neighborhood. So most of the area, unless it was a pasture, you could run all around the neighbor's yard, and right there, like you say, the grass, you could play ball. And then pretty far back, you could keep on going back past the garden and past Grandpa's little, I don't know, was it a dog pen, I guess, back there, the hunting dog pen? Yeah.
Yep, we had sheds back in there that they stored an old green stove, which now would be really worth a lot, and old paint cans. And one of the neighbors' grandkids came over one time and got into the cans with the brushes and sticks and things. They were painting around all over there, and we went out because there was tables and there was things that we used to play kitchen in and playhouse, and we had, Daddy's painting everything up. So I just remember that so good.
And that was basically an old-fashioned building, log cabin style hut or shed, right?
No, it was a shed that had a deep roof on it, just one side.
Okay.
It was all wood, slippery wood.
Okay.
And then they had the chicken coop next door, and I hated the chickens. I had to go in there and reach under them and get an egg, and they'd be pecking at me. And someone says, well, just shoo the chickens off first. I said, they wouldn't go.
So when Ed and I raised chickens for so many years, I think since we were youngest kids, Dad always had us out there raising chicks from eggs, and we'd get the little lamp and keep them going. And then every season we'd had about 24 chickens. Did you ever get accustomed to it, or did you always have a little bit of a intrepidation with it?
I was kind of scared of them, except that Ed knew how to put his finger on. He'd get the chicken's eyes and attention with his finger, and then he'd put his finger on the ground, and then the chicken would put his beak right on the ground, and he was hypnotized. It would stay there till he clicked his fingers and said, okay. So I thought, well, they're dumb. I really should be able to like them, but.
Well, I remember the terrible thing about the chickens. We'd start out with 24, and as they got to be bigger chickens, you could put them out we had a little chicken coop boxed in with fences to keep the dogs out. And they would always peck on the weakest one, and the weakest one would have big marks all over the back of his neck until they killed it. And then they'd kill the next one. So you'd end up in 4 or 5 weeks with only 18. And you had to just start separating them, and it's just, they're awful to each other.
Sound like some brothers I know.
Oh, goodness.
But those chickens did not like the chicken pen. They would fly up into the trees around our place, and that's where they would stay.
Now, I remember, let's see, we built a little rolling box made of chicken wire, so we could put them in there, and we could move them up a little bit farther around the yard, and they couldn't fly away. Maybe that was the rabbits. We also raised the rabbits. I guess that's what I'm thinking about. We had a little mobile cage thing that we could stick in different parts of the grass, because the rabbits, they could eat a lot. And it cost a lot to buy a big bag of rabbit feed. So might as well just give them grass. Yeah. And I think you're talking about the San Martin house certain ones, the hens that were smart and pretty mature, would fly up into the branches at night, because dogs that acted wild at night would come around and would rip the chickens apart if they weren't up in the trees or up on top of something. Yeah.
Well, our animals they were like humans. They thought they were part of us. And we had one chicken who just followed Ed around. It must have been the one he hypnotized. Anyway, he loved him. And at night, a lot of the guys would get together and have a log fire out in the yard, and they'd sit around and play guitars and things. And this chicken would hop from one lap to another, and I said, I'm sure somebody's going to throw her in the fire. They never did. They really liked her. And then they went to get in the car, and the guys were piling in, and she jumped on somebody's lap, and they said, "Oh, go away!" And they pushed her out of the car, and she was just like a little red hen that was so mad and fluffed her little feathers out and was walking around there so mad at everybody, and it was so cute. And then the next time, we had neighbors that were Galbraiths that lived about half a mile away. And they asked Dad if he'd bring some wood down for him. And so he had to keep the trunk open somewhat. Well, somehow that chicken got in the back of the trunk and rode down there. And so the guys are talking away and they're untying the thing, and they never noticed this little red hen gets out and starts running around. Well, this guy has dogs, and the dogs were barking and yelling, and one of them said, "Hey, we don't have a red chicken." And Tim says, "Oh, darn, that's ours." And he put it back in the trunk, and our animals just thought they should go with us. They were just part of us.
Yep, yep. You know, that kind of reminds me of when I bring a girlfriend or a girl that I was dating or whatever, just a girlfriend to the house after I moved away. And all my little brothers would just go crazy with all this attention to this girl, and they'd be asking her all kinds of questions. And do you remember some of those times we'd come in the front room and, 7 boys and my friend would be sitting on the couch, and she'd have 3 boys on one side, 3 on the other, one kind of playing with her hair and standing practically behind her. And they would just give her so much attention, and she'd be like,
"Oh, they didn't know what girls were. They didn't know an older girl."
Well, and then I remember there was a girl that pursued me, and I said no, a couple times. No, I didn't want to go out with her or anything. She was too pushy, kind of a little chubby girl. And if I remember right, she found out where my family was, and I lived in Saratoga going to college. But she went to the house. If I remember right, she brought a big tray of cookies and sat there and visited with you all and acted like she was my girlfriend or something. Do you remember something like that?
No, I don't remember that.
Oh my goodness.
I imagine the kids loved her with her cookies.
Yep. Marcy, that was her name, Marcy. Yeah, I found out that Marcy had done that. And then it just made me want to stay even farther away from her. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh boy.
Shall we tell a story about, let's see, what's the cow's name?
Sweetie Pie.
Sweetie Pie. I'll tell my version.
Okay, let's hear your version.
Okay. Mom had, let's see, Sam must have been about, Andy was 8 when we moved out to San Martin. So Andy, Matt was 6, Justin was 5, and so he was 3. Well, anyway, we had this cow that Tim had bought for us to have milk and things, and so the only one that would do the cow to milk her was John. He taught him how. I could not get that. You circle around and then you squeeze down. I could never do it, which is fun. So John was the only one, and he'd have to get up before seminary in the morning, and seminary was at 6. And so he'd have to get up at 5 and go out there and milk that cow. And one day he was tired and slept in, probably out on a date with some girl. And he slept in and he couldn't wake up, and he got up and dashed to the guy who was taking him to seminary and ran up to seminary. And all of a sudden I heard this cow just bellowing and just moo. And it just went on and on. I said, "What is wrong?" And I went out, and here she was, just nice and big and couldn't move with her milk bag so big. So I was upset. I was so upset with John. So I got in my car and I drove down to the church and walked in that seminary room and just busted in, opened the door, and I says, "Where's John Hale? He needs to get home and milk his cow." Oh my word, there's nothing worse that you could ask him. He had lived in Saratoga, which was a nice, beautiful city. And it was all the nice, rich people lived, and they didn't have animals around. Cowboys were not the thing. Well, out where we lived, the people had cows and cowboys and all that, and he did not want to be one of them. And here's his mother announcing to the world, here he is, this cowboy, come and take care of your cow. And so he put his head down, he got up and he went out there. And I don't remember if I said a thing to him, but we got to the house, and he went out there to the barn and milked the cow. And then I took him back to the high school. And that evening when he came home, he came in with a little song and a dance, and he was lighthearted. And I says, what happened to you? He says, all the girls like cowboys. And he was very, very well known after that as John Hale, the one that his mother yelled at him.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah, I have fun telling that story. I tell my version a little bit different. At the end, I say where I'd be walking down the hallway at school, and one of the class clown types would see me and yell out from across the hall with 50 people in the area. And he'd be like, John, did you milk the cow this morning? And I'd be all embarrassed. And at the end of the school year, when they come around to voting for the cutest couple and most likely succeed, they added a new one, most embarrassing moment. And I got that prize.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, I was trying to just keep it down low. I wouldn't wear cowboy hats and cowboy boots, except for only at home, out with the animals. Put on your big boots,
Dirty
go
old
walking
nutty
out
boots.
there in the pasture all dirty and stuff, and cowboy hat to keep the rain off or whatever. But I wouldn't wear that in public. Yep. Well, here, let's see. I got a picture. Let's see if I can bring this picture up. All right.
Aw, that
So,
was Dawn. That's our first one when we were at apartments in Milpitas.
so yeah, talk to us about this photo a little. This is your first. This is me. It's like
Yeah.
just a couple weeks old.
Yep. Out in the sunshine.
And you know, I see so many grandkids that look like you. You know, I could see their appearance that looks like you at this age. Now, how old would you say you were at this time? 60,
Well,
was that
it's
66?
20 years old.
20 years old. Okay.
Yeah. Got married at 18, had a baby at 20, and all my boys had sideburns down past their ears usually. I think maybe after you there was even more that. And then Tim might be out in the hallway when the babies were born. He says, I can tell a Hale, that's a Hale yell when they finally got born. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have another picture?
Well, let's see here. Oh, look at this picture. Do you see that one?
Nope.
Okay, I guess, oh, I have to share the screen. Let me see here if I can do this.
Oh, yep, our Model T. It was a speedster, and all the boys dressed up, and somebody made my dress, and I had a fur that I had won. I won that prize, and Tim made his own hat and had his vest. Yep, we were one of the first. They had races at San Jose, started right in Main Street, and then they'd go up in the mountains and wherever they had a race going, and you'd get counted as to you got there at the right time, and I was his he'd be the driver,
Navigator.
I'd be the guy next to him. He had a little mirror or little glass window for him, and I didn't have anything on my side, so if I went to talk or smile, I got a bug in my mouth. But in this picture, that was the other boys. That's John behind me, and Ed is over there to the left. Then Tim.
Yep.
Yep, I guess we just had the two boys when we were
I think,
doing the
if
racing.
I remember right, this would be going to the Campbell Gaslight Theater, and they would have a vaudeville show. And so once a year, the Model T Club would have an event there, and you go, and we'd have a park on. Actually, I think they let us park on that little street in the evening. So you had all these old cars lined up in there, and we played the part dressing up in that 1920s style. And then you go in there, and they'd have the villain. Let me think. What do they call that? The vaudeville
yeah,
story.
It was a live show.
Yeah, the hero.
So an old-fashioned
and,
thing. But I think on this one, we were on the race,
yeah.
and our good friend Bruce took the boys in his car. He had a Cobra, and the kids rather liked riding with him. And then we were in the race, and then we meet him at a certain place, like up in Pleasant Grove. No, it was Menlo Park or somewhere. We'd meet up with him, and then keep on going, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I can remember a few times, actually, Ed and I would join Dad and go to the Model T Club, and they'd be talking about the engines that are 80 years old and how they rebuilt it. And they're talking about the compression factor and the ratio of loss and all these things. And I was like, oh my goodness, I thought it was going to be exciting. And then they'd have a drawing. Okay, the winner is going to get, and it's like, a Model T headlight. Look at this, a pair of headlights. And that time they'd get, and it was.
Well, there'd be some guy with these tape measure out, and they'd have an old 1910 car that was all supposed to be exactly right and just the way it was. And he'd say, let's see this trunk on the side. I don't think it's the right inches. I think it's too deep. I mean, they were very specific on what they had on there and made sure that you had the right lights for the right car. Yep.
Well, I know Chuck wants to do a little video interview with you too here in a couple of days or weeks, and he can tell you about his car. He basically built a speedster very similar to this. So he's got a little putt-putt mobile to ride around the town, and horseless carriage. So it's official. He can ride it out on the small, city streets and things.
Yeah.
I don't think it goes more.
We did this one in Malad in the parade one year.
Yep.
It went down and we waved at everybody.
I think we'd go down Los Gatos parade as well once or something.
California. Yep, down there.
Yeah. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Well, it's just about 3 o'clock.
All right.
An hour's worth is long enough.
Well, it was good to talk with you and to compare notes and hear some of your stories. And I'm going to see you here in just a few days.
Okay, well, we'll try it again.
All right. We'll talk to you later, Mama. Love you.
Okay. Love you.
All right. Bye-bye.